My CEO wife openly cheated with her male assistant, and in a fit of anger, I exposed her dirty secrets online. In response, she sued me in court under the charge of defamation. The judge delivered the verdict on the spot, ordering me to publicly apologize to her online for 10 consecutive days. After the court adjourned, Camelia smugly patted my cheek. I told you, me finding a young toy boy was just to spice up our dull marriage. Once I'm done having fun, I'll naturally return to the family. Why can't you understand me? And besides, I don't agree to a divorce. What can a small-time influencer like you even do to me? She thought her power and status would make me obedient. What she didn't know was that I had already prepared my own counterattack. That very night, a video titled #Day1 of apologizing to my devoted wife went viral across the internet and climbed to the 3rd spot on trending searches. Meanwhile, Camelia, who was out on a date with her male assistant Samuel, was stunned on the spot when she saw the posts tagging her. Chapter 1. This court rules as follows. The defendant, Alexia, is hereby ordered to, starting from the effective date of this judgment, publish a public apology video to Ms. Camelia on online platforms for 10 consecutive days, and compensate her with 100,000 yuan. Bang. The gavel came down, like it had smashed directly onto my spine. How ironic. I stared blankly at the sunlight streaming through the window, yet all I felt was cold. My lawyer patted my shoulder. Sir, don't take the defamation case too much to heart. The key is the upcoming divorce lawsuit. I couldn't hear what came after. It felt like my ears were stuffed with cotton, and my mind was a complete mess. I was clearly the victim of my wife's cheating, so why should I be the one apologizing to her? Even if I had stirred up public opinion online out of anger and crossed a legal line, I was forced into it. The first time I discovered my wife Camelia cheating, I decisively asked for a divorce. If the marriage had already deteriorated, then we should part ways cleanly. But not only did she tear up the divorce agreement, she even shamelessly said, "It was just a kiss. Can you not be so sensitive?" I had no choice but to gather more evidence of her affair with her male assistant Samuel, and then hire a lawyer to file for divorce. But she fled abroad, using work as an excuse to request a delay from the court. In reality, she was enjoying a 2-person world overseas with Samuel. It was during that time that she completely crossed the line. She even encouraged Samuel to send me photos of the two of them in bed, along with provocative messages. Didn't expect a rich, beautiful woman pushing 30 to have such a hot body. Damn, she feels amazing. I completely lost it. I smashed everything in the house, but my anger still wouldn't subside. So I logged into my streamer account and posted all the evidence of those cheating scumbags online, stirring up public outrage. I figured if I was going down, none of us would have it easy, but I didn't expect Camelia to be fully prepared. The public opinion was quickly suppressed, and she even sued me in court. Alexia. I instinctively looked up. Camelia walked over, radiant and full of herself, her high heels clicking against the floor. I frowned slightly and stood up to leave. Stop right there. She hurried after me and grabbed me. Have you made enough of a scene? I'm so busy every day, and for something this trivial, do you know how much of my precious time you've wasted? Busy sleeping with Samuel. I shot back mercilessly. I felt nothing but disgust for this woman now. There wasn't a shred of love left. Camelia's expression instantly darkened. Can't you be like my friends' husbands and just turn a blind eye? And besides, I don't agree to a divorce. As she spoke, she reached out her slender hand and patted my cheek. What can a small-time influencer like you even do to me? I told you, I'm just a bit tired of this 5-year marriage. I found a young toy boy to freshen things up. Why can't you understand me? Why do you insist on making a fuss about divorce? Get lost. I slapped her hand away. Don't bring up those 3 brain-dead friends of yours. What? Should I be grateful that your preferences are normal, so you found a guy to cuckold me instead? You. Cut the nonsense. I interrupted her directly. You just want to maintain your perfect CEO image and win that National Outstanding Young Woman award, don't you? You want the red flag at home to stay standing while colorful flags flutter outside. I'm telling you, that's impossible. This divorce, I'm getting it, no matter what. Chapter 2. Camelia's face flushed from pale to red as I shot back at her, her eyes fixed on me without blinking. After a long moment, she put on a nonchalant smile again. Heh, interesting. This is way more entertaining than playing with a boy toy. I'd like to see how exactly you're going to force me into a divorce. With that, she turned and strode away. As we brushed past each other, Camelia's lips moved slightly. Don't forget to comply with the court's judgment. I narrowed my eyes, watching her receding figure. I took out my phone and only relaxed after confirming the recording was intact. Perfect, another piece of evidence. Combined with what I had gathered before, it was more than enough to play this game. You like to dominate others and enjoy hearing apologies. Huh? Then I'll give you a proper apology. Camelia, you better be ready for it. An hour later, I returned to my studio. As a streamer with tens of millions of followers focused on outdoor content, having an operations team was inevitable. When the team members saw me, they all looked worried. Although the video had been taken down by Camelia, the impact was still there. Women are often perceived as the weaker party, and even though Camelia Sue is the CEO of the Sue Group, most people would still side with her. After signaling that I was fine, I went straight into my office. I opened a document on my computer, my fingers flying across the keyboard as I wrote 10 apology scripts in one go. The content came together quickly. The title was, Day 1 of Apologizing to My Devoted Wife. I would just change the day number for the following ones. Apology Video Day 1. Hello, MS. Camelia. I am your husband, Alexia. I sincerely apologize for the inappropriate remarks I previously made about you across various media platforms. I'm sorry. You and Mr. Samuel are true love. I should not have exposed the fact that you were cheating during our marriage online, as per your request. Even if your conduct was morally flawed, I should not have posted remarks online that insulted you or infringed upon your personal rights. After deep reflection, I realized that I was narrow-minded. You were not cheating, you are simply loving toward all. As of today, after the court session, when you told me that finding a younger man was merely to spice up our 5-year dull marriage, I finally understood. You are a young and accomplished female CEO. I should not have tried to monopolize your love. Your love should extend across the nation and even the world. For this, I once again apologize to you. At the end of the video, I added a bonus clip, the arrogant recording of Camelia after the court session. Since she hadn't requested court review of the content, there was nothing wrong with me making a truthful apology. After editing, I didn't upload it immediately. Instead, I switched backgrounds and began recording the remaining 9 videos. I just followed the same template as the first one, but each had a different bonus clip. For example, in the second apology video, I superficially described how Camelia would occasionally give me small gifts, but the bonus revealed receipts of expensive luxury items she bought for Samuel, while all the complimentary freebies were passed on to me, along with screenshots from Samuel's social media showing him bragging. In the third video, I sincerely thanked Camelia for setting aside her busy schedule to bring a hotel-prepared meal home to celebrate my birthday. In reality, those dishes were leftovers from her meal with Samuel, again backed by his social media posts. For the rest of the videos, I used the same contrast. On the surface, I repented, but in reality, I included evidence of Camelia deliberately trying to humiliate me, openly booking hotel rooms with Samuel and even allowing him to send me photos and mocking messages. By evening, I had spent over 3 hours producing all 10 apology videos. I called in my assistant Freya and told her to start posting them today. I specifically instructed her to pay for promotion and to update them every morning. She paused for a moment after hearing this, then asked cautiously, Ale, aren't you worried these apology videos will get taken down again or that you'll get sued? Don't worry, I have a plan. I paused, then added, also, post them on my overseas TikTok account. Make sure we maximize the reach. You're not planning to do something risky again, are you? Freya looked at me with concern, but I simply waved my hand without answering. Posting the videos was one thing, the key was making sure they stayed up. Otherwise, it would just be repeating the same mistake. Tapping my fingers lightly on the desk, I let out a sigh. Now, the only option was to sign a deal with the devil and bring 2 powerful backers into the game. Otherwise, taking on capital alone wouldn't be easy. Chapter 3. While I was busy recording, Camelia was already indulging herself in a private mansion. At that moment, she lounged lazily on the sofa, enjoying the flattery of her 3 best friends while teasing Samuel, who knelt beside her, attentively serving her. Camelia, suing him was just the first step. You need to make that loser understand what happens when you offend capital. Exactly. A tiny ant like him actually dares to bring up divorce to his master. He really thinks he's somebody. At the mention of divorce, Camelia's brows instantly furrowed, and her expression darkened. One of her friends, Rita, noticed the change and quickly signaled the other 2 with her eyes to stop. She was sharp enough to realize that Camelia was not in a good mood today, because ever since Camelia had openly started cheating, she would usually drag Samuel into the next room the moment they arrived at the mansion to indulge themselves. But she hadn't done that today, which said everything. The other 2 women caught on as well and immediately asked with concern. Camelia took a sip of red wine, composed herself, then slowly spoke. Alexia is determined to divorce me. Do you have any way to make him behave? You're worried that if the divorce blows up at this critical moment, it'll affect your chances of winning the National Outstanding Young Woman Award, right? Exactly. Camelia set down her wine glass. If I can win that award, the group's value will rise, and my mother will finally hand over full control. The room fell into silence. All 4 women racked their brains for a solution. After a long while, Rita suddenly slapped her thigh. Camelia, you can target Alexia's family. Won't be very effective. Camelia shook her head. His family is blended. They treat him well, but he rarely visits. That depends on the situation. If something happens to his biological mother, do you think he'll just ignore it? That remark made Camelia pause, signaling her to continue. Seeing this, Rita didn't beat around the bush. Isn't his mother a low-level civil servant? You can set her up, frame her, smear her reputation. If Alexia behaves, you stop in time. But if he doesn't know what's good for him, make his whole family's life a living hell. As she finished, she stared intently at Camelia, who had lowered her gaze in thought. After a moment, Camelia nodded. She was willing to give it a try, but before she could make a call to arrange it, an untimely exclamation rang out. All the women frowned and looked at Samuel, trembling. He held up his phone. Camelia, something's wrong. This is bad, really bad. What could possibly be so bad? The sky isn't falling. Though dismissive, Camelia still took the phone. A video titled #Day1 of apologizing to my devoted wife hashtag appeared on the screen. It was currently ranked 3rd on trending and still climbing. She didn't like the title, but when she saw Alexia's opening apology, a faint smile still crept onto her lips. However, as the video went on, the tone shifted, and her expression darkened again. Especially the recording of her arrogant remarks after the court session. It sounded particularly harsh. Everyone present could hear it clearly through the speaker, their mouths hanging open in disbelief. How dare he? Camelia subconsciously tightened her grip on the phone, her knuckles turning pale. The comments section was filled with insults directed at her. So a woman like this still wants to compete for that youth award? Go home and sleep. Vicious, disgusting woman, stop ruining decent people. He's someone who brings honor to the country in extreme sports. First time seeing a cheater this arrogant. Just because she has money, she thinks she can do whatever she wants. She won't last long. I hope she ends up with 8 kids in one go. Reading the flood of vicious comments, Camelia's face turned black with rage. Her teeth clenched, her whole body trembling. The next second, she screamed, like an erupting volcano, smashing the phone violently onto the ground. The screen shattered instantly. Samuel's eye twitched at the sight, his expression turning resentful. Camelia ignored him, pulling out her phone to contact people and resolve the situation. But as she made call after call, the results caused her anger to slowly turn into shock, then panic. The platform executives who used to favor her now refused to get involved with Alexia. They even advised her not to act rashly and to resolve things peacefully, because in order to stand against Camelia's capital power, Alexia had already signed 2 deal with the devil contracts as protection. He had once again partnered with the overseas extreme sports organization Black Bull, agreeing to complete one of the challenges from the 8 trials of Ozaki within the year. Chapter 4. 6 years ago, Alexia, under the sponsorship of Black Bull Extreme, completed 2 challenges, Ice Consolidation and Water's Essence, and rose to fame in one fell swoop. Now, the official website had already announced that they would fully support their old partner during his preparation period, emphasizing that the company would spare no effort in every aspect. Although based overseas, their influence far exceeded that of the Sioux Group. Moreover, Camelia was only the CEO. She did not represent the entire Sioux Group. If the company's interests were harmed, the shareholders could unite and remove her from her position. What troubled Camelia even more was that Alexia had also joined the Domestic Extreme Sports Association and was serving as its vice president. The president had even publicly supported Alexia, stating, "Let public opinion return to the facts themselves," and tagged the official regulatory account. At first, Camelia was dismissive, but after making inquiries, she learned that the president had a powerful background. The exact details were unclear, but one thing was certain: if you crossed him, you'd better be prepared to pay a heavy price. At that moment, Camelia panicked. I returned to the duplex apartment I had bought before marriage. Curling up on the sofa, my mind kept replaying the thought of free-climbing the 980-meter Angel Falls with my bare hands. This was the deal I had made with Black Bull Extreme. 6 years had passed. Thinking back on my past recklessness, I now felt an inexplicable sense of awe toward nature. At the summit of Mont Blanc in the Alps, at an altitude of 4,800 meters, I attempted explosive speed skiing, throwing a grenade as I descended. In that moment, I truly understood what it felt like to be flying ahead while an avalanche chased behind. That same year, I went to Hawaii's outer reef to surf among great white sharks and nearly got crushed by a 22-meter high wave. Even though I succeeded and gained both fame and fortune, it was truly by sheer luck. But now, approaching 30, just because Camelia refused to divorce, relying on her immense capital, I was once again standing on the edge of death. The irony was that all of this stemmed from a failed marriage. I suddenly sat up, crossing my legs, trying to clear the chaos in my mind through meditation. But I was abruptly interrupted by the urgent vibration of my phone. It was Camelia calling. After a moment of hesitation, I pressed answer. The moment the call connected, Camelia's sharp voice exploded from the other end. "Alexia, You've gone too far. The entire internet is laughing at me now. Delete the video immediately, or don't blame me for what I'll do to you. I had expected this. I held the phone away until she finished shouting, then slowly brought it back to my ear. Only then did I speak calmly. Finished. You. Cut the nonsense. Be at the Civil Affairs Bureau at 9 a.m. tomorrow. I interrupted coldly. Bring your documents. I've already drafted the divorce agreement. You just need to show up and sign. I want 30 million in cash. 30 million? Why don't you just rob a bank? Camelia Sue. Don't forget. I got straight to the point. You're the one who cheated during the marriage, you cuckolded me. And your Sue Group's outdoor brand. It only rose quickly because I endorsed it at a low cost and provided my image rights for free, helping the entire company out of its crisis. So don't bargain with me. This is what you owe me. I had already calculated it, aside from a few properties. Camelia had less than 40 million in liquid cash. The priority now was to get the money and finalize the divorce quickly, freeing myself from that humiliating label. There was a brief silence on the other end before Camelia's tone softened. Ale, do we really have to end our 5-year marriage like this? I still have feelings for you. Enough. My patience was gone. Camelia, no one here is stupid. You say you still care about me, yet you're sleeping with Samuel. You even let him provoke me and send me your intimate photos together. Don't tell me that as a CEO, you'd fall for such childish tricks. That day I just drank too much. I wasn't in a good mood. It was an accident. She hurried to defend herself, completely unaware of how hollow her words sounded. Rubbing my throbbing temples, I lost all patience to continue. Camelia, stop playing games with me. If I don't see you at the Civil Affairs Bureau tomorrow, you'll face the consequences. I'd like to see what collapses first, your Sue Group's stock price, or my videos getting taken down. With that, I hung up. Now that the association president was backing me, if Camelia wanted to use capital to suppress me again, she'd have to think twice. I closed my eyes, and only after a long while did the anger slowly subside. In my mind, the image of Camelia, once a simple girl with a ponytail, wearing a plain white shirt and jeans, overlapped again and again with the current image of her as a powerful female CEO. The two figures merged, then separated, repeating endlessly, until finally, both dissolved into nothing. Chapter 5. 6 years ago, Camelia was sincere, intelligent, and resilient, with an unyielding spirit. After seeing my achievements overseas online, she came alone to find me, bringing a proposal that could help the Sue Group overcome its crisis. The moment I looked into her eyes, like they held stars, I felt myself falling for her. Of course, being drawn to her looks was one thing, but my desire to help a domestic brand go global was genuine too. When I learned that the Sue Group was facing a financial crisis, I didn't take advantage of the situation. I only charged 1.5 million yuan for 2 years of endorsement and waived fees such as image rights. Then I helped Camelia conduct research both domestically and internationally, refining designs to create outdoor apparel that was both functional and fashionable. I also wrote the brand story based on a grassroots rise. After 3 months of working together, we became a couple, and the following year, when the brand exploded in popularity, we got married. Since both Camelia's father and mine had passed away early due to illness, her mother suggested we keep the wedding low-key. At the time, neither of us thought much of it, but in the second year of our marriage, after the Sue Group had successfully overcome its crisis thanks to the new brand, Camelia's mother revealed her true colors. She began looking at me as if inspecting merchandise, her words laced with contempt. When my contract expired, she decisively cut me out entirely and chose another celebrity as the brand ambassador. At first, Camelia was dissatisfied with her mother's attitude and actions, and the two of them argued frequently. But later, after her 3 best friends returned from abroad, they began to frequently involve themselves in our home life, feeding her so-called husband-handling tactics. Gradually, Camelia changed as well. That was in the 3rd year of our marriage. After that, I stopped focusing on family life and instead expanded my studio, hiring staff and leveraging my remaining popularity to become an outdoor sports streamer. Freya and the others were recruited during that time. Thankfully, I woke up in time. Camelia, who had been promoted to CEO that same year, grew increasingly busy, and our relationship gradually shifted from husband and wife to something like partners fulfilling certain needs. The cracks had long been there. As for Samuel, he was merely the spark that ignited the powder keg. I stood up, walked to the liquor cabinet, and took out a bottle of strong alcohol. The amber liquid poured into the glass, but I didn't drink it. I simply inhaled its scent, letting the sharpness of the alcohol stimulate my nerves. After discovering that Camelia and Samuel were involved in something ambiguous, I confronted her directly. Since the marriage had deteriorated, we should part ways cleanly. Not only did she refuse, she casually said, "It was just a kiss. Do you really have to be so sensitive?" Then she deliberately avoided me. So I went to find Camelia's mother, who had always looked down on me, thinking she would at least be willing to let us divorce. Instead, I was turned away at the door. The butler passed along a message. Madam says you, a mere athlete, should be grateful you haven't been abandoned. You have no right to ask for a divorce. It was at that moment that I began gathering evidence of Camelia's affair. And after all that struggle, I ended up being the one sued in court. Thinking of this, I picked up my phone and dialed a number. Atlas, I need you to handle something for me. With me. No need for formalities. What is it? My eyes subconsciously drifted to a youthful photo on the TV cabinet. In it, the guy with a mischievous grin, secretly making bunny ears behind my head, was Atlas. His real name was Atlas, my good brother from the skiing team back in sports school. Over the years, he had opened several clubs and bars, building connections with all sorts of people. For certain matters, he was the most suitable person to rely on. I wasn't going to let Camelia off the hook, and her 3 best friends, along with Samuel, they wouldn't get away either. Samuel, knowingly being the other man yet still choosing to be one, that goes without saying. But the most detestable were Camelia's 3 friends. They had played the role of scheming advisors, teaching her manipulation tactics and feeding her twisted ideas about controlling a husband. They even came up with the rotten idea of suing me, trying to use power to suppress me and force me into becoming a submissive simp who would go along with Camelia. If people like them weren't dealt with, I wouldn't be able to get past this in my heart. After hearing what I needed him to do, Atlas agreed without hesitation. No problem. I'll take care of it. Thanks, brother, but make sure it leaves no loose ends. I said sincerely. Don't worry. Chapter 6. The next day, I stood at the entrance of the Civil Affairs Bureau, focused on studying information about Angel Falls on my phone. Strength and courage were essential, but I also needed to understand every detail like a surgeon to increase my chances of success. The sudden sound of an engine approached from afar. I looked up and saw that the Maybach's license plate belonged to Camelia's mother's car, and I couldn't help but frown. Once the car stopped, a well-maintained middle-aged woman and Camelia stepped out one after another. Camelia's makeup was still impeccable today, but it couldn't hide the fatigue in her eyes. Clearly, she had just been scolded by her domineering mother. Well done, Alexia. Camelia's mother was the first to attack. 30 million, trying to extort my daughter. That's what I deserve, I replied in a low voice, completely unafraid. You think you're worth that much? Why don't you take a look at yourself first? She sneered, her tone dripping with arrogance born of power. You dared to slander my daughter, damaging her reputation and affecting the group's stock price. Are you tired of living? As she spoke, she pulled out a divorce agreement from her bag. Sign it, then post a statement online admitting that everything you said before was fabricated, that you were mentally unstable. Then leave with nothing and get out quietly. Otherwise what? I interrupted calmly. Like how you used me and threw me away back then. Or like last time when I came to see you and was turned away, and you called me a worthless jock. Camelia's mother's expression darkened, sharp-tongued. Aren't you? You think finding some backing and posting a few sarcastic videos is enough to fight me? Let me tell you, the Sue Group's network is beyond what a small-time influencer like you can imagine. I can make your videos disappear completely, and make sure you can't survive in this country. Is that so? I spoke calmly, tapping on my phone before turning the screen toward her. Seems like your network isn't that impressive after all. On the screen was today's trending list. Hashtag day 2 of apologizing to my loving wife hashtag sat firmly at number 1, while yesterday's video ranked second. Camelia's mother's pupils shrank. Clearly, she hadn't expected her connections to fail, nor that even paid online trolls couldn't stir up anything. Still, she forced herself to stay composed. Maybe they haven't really stepped in yet. Just wait. You probably won't be getting help from Chairman Wang or Deputy Director Lee. I took back my phone and looked at her. I forgot to mention, the president of the Extreme Sports Association is surnamed Ning. His granduncle used to sit at the top before retiring. The people you relied on, they're probably having tea somewhere right now. Camelia's mother's face finally changed, her lips trembling uncontrollably. Behind her, Camelia showed clear panic for the first time, blurting out, "How is that possible?" "Nothing's impossible. I risked my life to help him build achievements. Him returning the favor is only natural." The association was merely a stepping stone for President Ning. 2 years ago, when he was appointed, he had already reached out to me, hoping I would help take the association to greater heights. At the time, I prioritized my family and declined politely. Yet in the end, I still found my way into the association, unwilling to accept it. Camelia's mother took out her phone and made several calls, but all she got was busy signals. At that moment, she realized she had gone too far, though there was still a trace of unwillingness in her eyes. Seeing that she still refused to give up, I leaned in and whispered something into her ear. She reacted as if struck by lightning, stumbling back a step, pointing at me with a trembling finger. You're talking nonsense. Whether it's nonsense or not, you know it yourself. I smiled faintly. So, can we proceed with the divorce now? 30 million is the compensation I deserve. As for your little secrets, I'll pretend I know nothing. With that, I took out my own copy of the divorce agreement and handed it over. Camelia hadn't heard what I said. She stared blankly at the agreement, her eyes fixed, her lips parted, her eyes reddening instantly as she looked at me, but before she could speak, her mother grabbed her arm. Sign it, her mother said, her voice trembling slightly. There's no time to drag this out anymore. But Mom, look at you, have some dignity. Seeing her daughter like this, Camelia's mother cut her off. So what if you cheated? She pointed at Camelia. With your status, do you lack men? Stop embarrassing yourself here. Without another word, she dragged Camelia toward the building. Camelia struggled as she was pulled away, her voice choked with sobs. Mom, I still have feelings for him. I don't want a divorce. The moment I received the divorce certificate, I felt completely relieved. With the 30 million transferred, the 2-month-long divorce battle finally came to an end. As I walked out of the Civil Affairs Bureau, Camelia's mother pulled her into the car as she kept looking back at me. I watched them leave, then turned and walked toward my BMW M5. The divorce was only the first step. The storm, however, had just begun. Chapter 7. In the blink of an eye, 10 days had passed. With nowhere left to turn, Camelia blocked the entrance of my residential complex. During this time, both she and her mother had completely fallen apart. I had added the surveillance footage of her mother threatening me at the Civil Affairs Bureau into the later apology videos. With support from the Domestic Extreme Sports Association and the Overseas Black Bull Company, public opinion surged overwhelmingly, causing Sioux Group stock to hit the daily limit down. The shareholders were furious and directly removed both Camelia and her mother from their positions. Even Samuel was fired and blacklisted. This was largely thanks to Camelia's mother's past reckless decisions, which gave the shareholders an opportunity. Back then, after Camelia's father passed away, her mother had distributed part of the shares to stabilize her position as chairwoman, leading to fragmented power. Once the shareholders united, they had enough leverage to remove her. Forced out of power, Camelia's mother was furious. In a moment of impulsiveness, she filed lawsuits against me, the Extreme Sports Association, the Overseas Black Bull Company, and even Sioux Group's shareholders all at once. That move stirred up a hornet's nest, and with her standing alone, she quickly fell into a disadvantage. But misfortune never comes alone. Just 2 days ago, Atlas uncovered shocking dirt on Camelia's mother. Without hesitation, I had him arrange for an anonymous report, accusing her privately funded art school of illegal activities. I had discovered this accidentally before she sued me. After being turned away by that old woman, the more I thought about it, the angrier I became, so I went back again. By sheer coincidence, I saw 2 young men in their early 20s being helped out of her villa. They were crying, their legs trembling as they got into a van and left. I had the presence of mind to secretly take photos and sent them to Atlas to investigate. Now that the evidence was solid, Camelia's mother had been taken away by authorities for investigation, and Camelia lost her biggest backing. As of today, the case against her mother had been officially filed, but due to the wide scope involved, both their accounts were frozen. Even Sioux Group had to cooperate with financial investigations. Left penniless, Camelia went to her 3 best friends for help. What she got in return was nothing but harsh insults. As the subsequent videos continued to release, those 3 women had also become targets of public outrage. They were desperate to distance themselves from Camelia. No one was willing to invite trouble. Just like that, Camelia was heartlessly driven away. As for Samuel, seeing she no longer had any value, he fled without hesitation, searching for his next rich target. Atlas told me everything was ready to proceed as planned. That made me feel even better, toppling Camelia and her mother, and indirectly breaking apart her opportunistic friends and Samuel, had all been part of my plan. I just didn't expect Camelia to still have the nerve to come looking for me. Ale. The property management said Camelia has been driven away. We should get going. All right, what about you? I packed my luggage and looked at Freya. Driving yourself, or coming with me? She gave a sly smile. Of course I'm hitching a ride. You really trust me to drive a long-distance trip alone? I froze for a moment, then shook my head with a bitter smile. I'd really been too busy lately. The training location was in the neighboring province, where the association had its own land. The Overseas Red Bull Company had also invested in upgrading the facilities. We headed straight down to the parking garage, got the car, and set off. But unexpectedly, just as I turned out of the complex, a figure suddenly dashed out. I slammed on the brakes. Fortunately, I was driving slowly and stopped in time, though the seatbelt dug painfully into my chest. Looking up, I was instantly furious. It was Camelia. You crazy woman. I unbuckled my seatbelt, got out of the car, and pointed at her as she sat on the ground. Are you out of your mind? Are you trying to scam me with a fake accident? Camelia blinked, her eyes misty, clearly shaken as well. After a few seconds, She spoke in a trembling voice. I just wanted to see you. Well, I don't want to see you. Husband. Call me by my name. I glared at her. And we're no longer related. Why are you showing up like a ghost? I came to borrow money. Chapter 8. I froze. Even forgetting to be angry. Thinking I had misheard, I casually asked, "What did you say?" I said. Camelia sniffed. "I came to borrow money from you. My cards are frozen. And I ran out of cash last night after refueling my car. What about your valuables, your jewelry and watches?" I frowned. "Someone broke into my house last night. Everything was stolen." As soon as she finished speaking, Camelia broke down completely, crying uncontrollably. I scratched the back of my head, and suddenly remembered Atlas's smug voice from last night saying he had prepared a surprise for me. A surprise. I cursed internally. Damn it. So that surprise was hiring some petty thief to clean out Camelia's entire house. Atlas, you really are a damn ungrateful son, always screwing over your own dad. I cursed inwardly, but strangely, I didn't feel the slightest bit of guilt. I walked up to Camelia. "Move. We're divorced. I have no obligation to take care of you, and I don't want to. But if your house was robbed, go report it to the police. Just don't come bother me." The moment I finished speaking, I lifted her aside like she weighed nothing. Just as I was about to head back to the driver's seat, she suddenly clung tightly to my leg. "No, you can't leave. I have nothing now. You can't just abandon me. You've got some nerve." I shook her off with a kick. Just as I was about to get back into the car, I saw her sitting there, hugging her knees, her shoulders trembling rhythmically. She was crying. I frowned slightly. Where was that cold, domineering CEO now? She looked completely broken. For a moment, I wondered if the recent series of blows had pushed her into a mental breakdown. Almost instinctively, I gestured toward the car, signaling Freya to come out. She had a psychology certification, better to assess the situation first. Getting revenge on Camelia was one thing, but I didn't want a life on my hands. I quietly shared my concerns with Freya. She frowned as she looked at Camelia, who was sobbing, her expression dull and vacant. A few minutes later, Freya conducted a basic assessment, from conversation to checking her pupils. She stood up and nodded at me. "You were right. There's a mental issue, probably due to consecutive emotional shocks, something like a mild breakdown. But it's not serious. With some rest and no further stress, she should recover." I let out a long breath. After thinking for a moment, I decided to take a detour and bring her to the hospital for a proper checkup. After that, I'd have Atlas keep an eye on her. Once I made up my mind, we helped Camelia into the car and headed toward the hospital. On the way, I didn't forget to call Atlas. Honestly, this whole situation was absurd. It had spiraled further than expected. More than 2 hours later, the doctor reviewed Camelia's results, which were mostly consistent with Freya's assessment. The only difference was that she had suffered a minor impact to the back of her head and needed rest. I checked the time and told Atlas to keep an eye on her. I had to reach the training site today no matter what. This turned out messy. Atlas sighed. "Alex, I really just meant it as a prank to help you vent. I didn't expect it to go this far." "It's not that serious," I replied. "At most, it was just the last straw that broke her." I patted his shoulder, glanced around, then lowered my voice. "What about Samuel and those 3 women? What's their situation now?" Chapter 9. Late into the night, Freya and I finally arrived at the training site. After exchanging greetings with President Ning and the representatives of Black Bull Extreme Sports, we returned to our rooms to rest. After showering, as the water evaporated from my body, I turned on my laptop. I skillfully logged into a foreign email account. Atlas had sent the latest updates about Samuel and the others there. I glanced through it. Now all 4 of them had taken the bait, only the final step remained, pulling them into the net. I typed, "Safety comes first," then closed the computer and lay down on the bed, ready to sleep. At that moment, someone knocked on the door. I opened my eyes, took a moment, put on a robe, and went to open it. It was Freya. "I made you some soup. Do you want a little?" "Oh, thanks." I was briefly surprised, then quickly stepped aside to let her in. Although it was already late, it wouldn't be right to refuse her kindness. The room fell silent. Only the faint sound of a spoon occasionally touching the bowl could be heard. I drank the soup quietly, while she rested her chin on her hand, staring at me without blinking. It made me feel a bit uncomfortable, and I unconsciously quickened my pace. Ever since the divorce process with Camelia began, I noticed Freya acting differently. As an assistant, besides her usual duties, she added something else, psychological support for me. At first, I thought it was just concern between colleagues, but after the divorce, things changed even more. She began making soup for me on her own initiative, and sometimes came to my place, even cooking a table full of dishes. That was when I realized things had already crossed a certain line. I am a straightforward person, so I told her that, for now, I didn't want to get involved in a new relationship. She said she understood, but also stated firmly, "I'll wait for you." Seeing that I didn't understand, she explained her reason. She came from a prestigious medical family in the capital, and since childhood had been forced to study medicine, which made her unhappy. Even later, when studying psychology, she felt she had developed mild depression. One day, while browsing foreign forums, she saw my videos challenging Ozaki's 8 tests and an interview of mine that ignited a spark within her. We all feel fear at times, but we must learn to face it and even conquer it, even if we end up shattered in the end. That brief answer in the interview moved her deeply, so she pursued a second degree, obtained dual qualifications, and decided to come work with me. For someone like me, who had just emerged from the shadow of a failed marriage, I could only take things step by step, but continuing like this wasn't fair. So when I saw her packing her things to leave, I impulsively stopped her. "If I manage to complete this challenge and come out unscathed, how about we try being together? Aren't you afraid I might be another Camelia?" "There's nothing to be afraid of." Suddenly, a soft fragrance accompanied her as she stepped closer. Freya gently pressed a light kiss onto my lips, brief and delicate, like a seal marking the beginning of something new. Chapter 10. Another half-month passed. Atlas told me the 4 fish had all been caught. I temporarily set aside my training, locked myself in my room, and reviewed the fruits of victory. These past few days had been exhausting. Not only did I have to complete my specialized training seriously, but I also had to spare energy to direct the plants Atlas arranged, pushing Samuel and those 3 women step by step into the abyss. Didn't Samuel love attaching himself to rich women and ruining other people's families? Then I'd grant his wish, let him spend the rest of his life in the circle of wealthy women. From the moment he left Camelia to look for his next target, I had Atlas arrange for a madam in J country to step in. The madam showed Samuel proof of how male hosts there could earn massive amounts of money from wealthy married women. After a few days of conditioning, Samuel became convinced it was far more profitable than staying in the country, so he followed her to J country. At first, I only had the madam introduce him into the trade, letting him follow the rules and earn money properly, just enough to taste success. A few days later, I had her deliberately reveal stories about some hosts finding true love, a path to ruin. Driven by greed, Samuel didn't even think it through and fully turned on his manipulative charm. With the madam secretly assisting, he successfully hooked a fairly attractive, high-status married woman. But he forgot, J country is a place where capital reigns supreme. The fool even tried to provoke powerful people there, just like he once provoked me. The result? He was beaten, then thrown into a club that catered to wealthy clients with extreme tastes. For the rest of his life, he would only be able to wag his tail and beg for survival there. I scrolled to the end of his file. There was a photo, him locked in a cage, eating from a dog bowl. Then I opened another folder. It contained information about Camelia's 3 friends, but there was only one photo of them arguing with someone and a written report. According to it, they had brought this upon themselves. After abandoning Camelia, they went to the peninsula to enjoy themselves. Everything had already been arranged, someone was waiting to deal with them. But right after landing, they somehow heard about an underground club and went there directly. That place was a chaotic mix. There were people engaging in risky behavior, even members of some strange cult-like group. By sheer misfortune, they got into a conflict with members of that group over a good-looking woman, and even dared to hit them. Then they disappeared. Up until now, multiple parties had searched without results. They had been officially listed as missing persons. All I could say was, sometimes, people truly bring ruin upon themselves. As I finished reading, I felt no emotion. I simply deleted the files and deactivated the email account. After everything was done, I glanced out the window, then turned back to continue my training. The real climax was about to begin. Chapter 11. A week later, I stood beneath the Devil's Wall of Angel Falls. The roaring sound of water filled my ears as the massive curtain of water crashed down from 979 meters above, the mist soaking the steep rock face. I closed my eyes. With the thunderous sound surrounding me, my mind gradually calmed, as if I had become one with nature. Thoughts of live streams, conquering Angel Falls, and everything else, all were cast aside. I walked to the starting point of the pre-planned route. The climb began. The slick rock holds were an ultimate test of both strength and technique. Time passed second by second. Occasionally, from the corner of my eye, everything below seemed to shrink into insignificance. As I continued climbing, fatigue gradually set in. There was no turning back now, only upward. At the midpoint, it became a pure confrontation between willpower and nature. Here, the overhang was enough to crush hope. Only by launching myself upward multiple times could I reach the next hold. Every decision meant life or death. The tearing pain in my arms flooded my mind, and my ankles began to tremble from constant exertion. By the final stage, my consciousness started to blur. My breathing became chaotic. Fragments of memories flashed through my mind. Camelia tearing up the first divorce agreement. Samuel's provocative photos. The cold strike of the judge's gavel. Camelia's mother's contemptuous face. Atlas's roguish grin. And Freya's eyes, filled with both worry and unwavering belief. I can't give up. I gritted my teeth, squeezing out every last ounce of strength. My fingers dug desperately into the cracks in the rock. My trembling ankles braced against protrusions. Inch by inch, I moved upward. When my fingertips finally touched and firmly gripped the edge of the summit, I placed all my weight into my arms one last time and let out a low roar, pulling myself over onto the flat top. A wave of overwhelming exhaustion and an indescribable clarity, something beyond life and death, flooded through me. Yet my mind had never been clearer. I made it. At that moment, sunlight pierced through the clouds and bathed my entire body. I forced myself to stand and looked out over the breathtaking view, tears silently sliding down my face, not from sadness, but from complete release and return. After 5.5 years, I, Alexia, had completed the third of the Ozaki challenges alive. At that moment, the sound of a helicopter echoed in the distance. A safety harness dropped down. I secured it skillfully and gave a thumbs up. The next second, I was lifted into the air. Instinctively, I spread my arms, letting myself soar through the sky. From here on, life would begin again, and my story would enter a new chapter. That night, we celebrated wildly around a bonfire at the temporary camp. President Ning grabbed my hand, drinking cup after cup, even getting slightly drunk and loudly insisting we become sworn brothers. This challenge had been broadcast live, and the pressure on him had been immense. It was as if he had bet his entire future on it. Fortunately, the result was good. Everyone was happy. The overseas Black Bull company's representative conveyed a message from higher management. The prize money had been increased from $5 million to $10 million. However, they hoped that even if I no longer pursued such extreme challenges, we could continue to cooperate, for example, having me serve as a judge in future competitions. Of course, I was happy to agree. This was how things had always been, and it had worked well. Throughout the lively celebration, Freya simply sat quietly to the side, holding her drink. Whenever our eyes met, she would give me a soft, sweet smile. After the bonfire ended, we sat together on a massive rock at the campsite, gazing at the stars. We didn't talk much. We both cherished the rare silence. Yet somehow, our hands found each other and stayed intertwined. Chapter 12. After returning to the country, news about me and the verdict against Camelia and her mother simultaneously sparked heated discussions online. But the reactions were completely opposite. Because I had completed Mastery of Life, one of the 8 trials of Ozaki, I was seen as bringing honor to the nation and received widespread praise. Meanwhile, Camelia and her mother became targets of universal condemnation. After 2 months of thorough investigation by the authorities, Camelia's mother received severe legal punishment. Under the guise of building an art school through personal charity, she had repeatedly abused minors at the school, and even coerced young boys and girls into providing sexual favors to achieve her goals. She had also illegally detained whistleblowers and injected them with psychiatric drugs to destroy evidence. Additionally, during her tenure as chairwoman, she committed tax evasion. In the end, multiple charges were combined. Camelia's mother was sentenced to life imprisonment. Other individuals involved in the case were also sentenced on the spot, receiving prison terms ranging from 10 to 20 years. Among them was Camelia. She had knowingly concealed the crimes and even aided in them, earning herself a 10-year prison sentence. Seeing this, I froze completely. I truly hadn't known that Camelia had been involved in any of this, but the next moment, I shook my head and let out a faint smile. No wonder the police had only questioned me once after opening the case. From the time I met her to our marriage, my involvement had only been with that outdoor brand, and only in its early stages. After that, I had been focused on being an outdoor streamer while also taking care of the household. And after becoming CEO, she had rarely been home. How could I possibly have known about the secrets between her and her mother? I set the tablet down on the coffee table and walked toward the balcony, lost in thought. I don't know how long passed, when a warmth suddenly filled my palm. Instinctively turning my head, I realized Freya had come over at some point, thinking about something unpleasant. No, I said softly, gently squeezing her delicate hand. It just feels unreal. Everything that's happened over the years. She didn't say anything. She simply stood on her toes slightly and pressed a soft kiss against my cheek. Then she asked, "How about now?" I looked at her. The setting sun cast a gentle golden glow around her, and in that moment, a sense of calm and warmth returned to my heart. All the sharp pain, the intense hatred, and even the shock and complicated feelings from learning about Camelia's crimes, all of it settled. I turned and naturally pulled her into my arms. She leaned into me quietly. "Freya," I murmured into her hair. "Thank you. When I couldn't see my future clearly, you helped show me the way." She shook her head lightly in my embrace. You found your own way out. I just walked with you through part of the night. By then, the tablet on the coffee table had long gone dark. Everything from the past felt like it had been sealed away in another time. The sun slowly dipped below the horizon, and the buildings outside began to light up one by one. We stayed like that for a long while. Then suddenly, I spoke. I'm hungry. Can we skip the recovery diet today? How about we try that new private restaurant? Sure. Freya lifted her head from my arms, her eyes curving like crescents. But on one condition, you eat less spicy food. You're still recovering. Understood. I promise I won't overdo it. We smiled at each other. Then, hand in hand, we walked toward the door. We didn't drive. Instead, we blended into the lights of the city, passing through the bustling crowd on the streets. I knew the road ahead was still long, but the lights were on. And someone was by my side.